Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Have a happy birthday. Oh, the party's here and we're having fun to celebrate this special day. Just look at you, you're the special one in every single way. So make a wish and blow out your candles. Open the gifts for you. Take my hand.
Well, America was entirely focused on war at that time. After Pearl Harbor broke out, which seemed to come as a surprise to most everybody, including a lot of the officials in Washington. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, everything just focused on war. So President Roosevelt, the very next day was when he made his speech that and announced about Japan attacking Pearl Harbor, and he said, and that's when he was quoted, and still they run the film now.
Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate, of the House of Representatives, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
I'm still amazed at what a good job he did to prepare the whole country and get the whole country, get them focused on war and being victorious, winning the war. Anybody can get involved in the war, but getting involved in winning the thing is something that's very difficult. And getting all the manufacturers converted over all of a sudden from making cars and other stuff. And in fact, utilities like such things as refrigerators and stoves and stuff like that, they converted over to making war materials, jeeps and guns and cannons and all such stuff as that. But I chose the Navy because, and went ahead and volunteered. For one thing, that's what I wanted to be in. I was always more attracted to the Navy, having a ship to ride on or in than being in the Army. And if I didn't volunteer, then I could have been drafted in, and they'd put you in whatever they wanted you to be into. But by volunteering, then you chose whichever branch that you wanted to go into. I was, let's see, Pearl Harbor was attacked in December 7th of 41, and I had just had turned 16 in October before it was attacked in December. I guess the Daytona Beach. I was raced down there two times in 1950 and 51, in February, 50 and 51. It still amazes me that Bill France, who started NASCAR, he had the know-how and the contacts and the influence to get the authorities to let him block off the two-lane highway, number 1, which ran up by the parallel to the beach. He got them to let him block that thing off for the entire length of the race. And in fact, even hours before and after that, to get all the activities in. And these people lived in the nice houses between the beach and the highway that he had to get their permission some way. They must have had a system set up in case they had an emergency developed that they'd stop the race and let them go to the hospital if the ambulance had to come in there. So it still surprises me that he managed to do that. One thing everybody understood was that after the race had been going on for a while, that if you thought your tires were getting hot, you could drive over next to where the ocean came in, on the wet sand that'd cool your tires off. But it was 2 miles down the beach, and then you went into a fairly sharp turn. It was 2 miles up the highway then, so the entire length of the track, of the racetrack, was 4 3/10 miles. And they had grandstands, I guess, on the only place I remember the grandstands being was right in the turns itself on each end. There's grandstands that people could buy tickets for that particular area. Except for that, then most of the crowd was just stood or sit down on the beach itself and watched the race from there. That we, for the most part, we towed the race car, which is number 18. We towed it to each track we raced on behind my personal car. In my case, I put up most of the money that it took to buy the car and get it ready for racing. And then, of course, we had a bunch of volunteers, especially the head mechanic on the car. He was the head mechanic for the Ford dealership there in Burnsville. Sam Bennett was his name, real good mechanic, and he worked on the thing, of course, with no charge, and worked at the track itself to work on it at pit stops and so forth. But real good mechanic, and but he wasn't a big rich person at all, and we operated on a shoestring as far as the money is concerned. While I was still racing, this patrolman there I mentioned, Charlie Long, in my home county, had kept mentioning about every time I'd see him, ever get any more thought about coming on the patrol. I guess late 50, it was when I was interested enough that I wanted to apply. You got to wait till the next patrol school starts. But then I had to go through interviews and physical examination and all that. So we actually started in June 18th of '51. The patrol started in July 1929, and the first highway patrolman I ever saw was in my hometown. His name was Dave Houston. He was a heavy-set fellow, and fairly tall and heavy-set, and he rode a motorcycle. And when he came to town, he had about 5 counties that he had to patrol in, because they had such few patrolmen that they had to cover. Some of them had to cover several counties. And so he came to Burnsville, probably that I know of, about every month maybe. And when he parked that motorcycle there near the courthouse, most everybody in town would come and gather around the motorcycle and look at it and maybe take pictures of each other in front with the motorcycle in the background. So I guess that was my first thing that attracted me about the highway patrol. And then later on, Charlie Long was stationed in my home county, along in the late 40s, and he kept telling me that I ought to get interested in the highway patrol. And when he kept it up, why, the more he talks about it, the more I became interested in it and went ahead and applied then. So he came there in 47, I'm pretty sure it was, and then I applied in 51, and but I never have been known to jump into something without thinking it pretty well through, and decided that was for me. So I joined in 1951, and I was interviewed by Captain Speed over at Asheville. He was in charge of that troop where my hometown Burnsville was located, and he interviewed me, and then I went from there to Rada then for another interview and a physical examination. It takes you about 6 months to get through all the different steps you got to go through to get on the patrol. Then you got to wait for the next patrol school to start. And mine started in, I'm pretty sure June 18th and finished July the 28th, 1951. We were sworn in, I know, on the first day of August of '51.
I want to make your wish come true. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. you. Happy birthday.
What did you think of that guy's magic show?
It was pretty crazy. Yeah.
What was the most impressive?
Probably the dollar bill show. That's pretty great.
Yeah.
But you're not getting older, you're just getting better. Every time that song gets sung. So make a wish, blow out your candle, open the gifts for you. Take my hand, we're birthday dancing. I wanna make your wish come